Welcome to the Wellness by Call Doctor podcast. And today on the hot seat, someone who has transformed over 1 million lives, founded more than 6 companies, authored more than 5 books, and consulted over 700 businesses. Someone who is on a journey to transform the health and wellness of every individual on the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Dr. Sajeev Nair. So, Doctor, we heard a lot about epigenetics. What exactly is epigenetics and how does it differ from genetics?
See, genetics is primarily the study on genes or whatever is happening with the gene. Suppose if you are carrying a particular gene variant or you call it as a gene mutation, these are all connected with genetics. So, when you are testing a gene, you come to know about the various mutations or the variants which can lead to different diseases. Epigenetics is outside the gene. Means if you are carrying a gene variant which can lead to, say, coronary artery disease, it doesn't mean that you have that disease. The only thing is that that gene can express at any point of time which can lead to coronary artery disease. So what are the factors which is going to make that particular gene express is called the epigenetics. That means the trigger. What are the factors which can trigger that gene to express? That's primarily epigenetics. So epigenetics can be your nutrition, your fitness, your environment, the kind of stress you go through. All these kind of things can be part of your epigenetics.
Doctor, how can epigenetics really tell us about our lifestyle and our health?
See, based on the gene variants, you can find out the gene variants which is there in your body by doing a genetic testing. So now you understood that you are carrying a particular gene variant which is causing a higher risk for Alzheimer's disease. I'm just giving an example. Now, you need to do certain correlations to understand that, okay, that particular gene variant is there right from your birth because it's not formed in between. So what could be the factor which can actually trigger that particular gene, which can express as Alzheimer's disease? Once you go deeper into that subject and you do certain level of metabolic assessment using a blood report or maybe a questionnaire, you will come to know that where you stand right now in terms of that particular disease or condition. So based on these correlations, you would be able to figure out exactly what could be the kind of trigger which will happen there. And then how do you block the trigger is the only question now. If you can block the trigger, you can block that disease to happen.
Okay.
So which requires certain level of analysis. That is what we do in this epigenetic lifestyle modification programs, the EPLIMO programs, where what we do is that our experts study this entire matter and they find out the trigger and they exactly spot out what kind of lifestyle modifications which you need to imbibe so that that trigger doesn't happen in your life, which could be something like doing a particular exercise or refraining from an exercise. Could be something like avoiding a particular vegetable or avoiding a certain type of food, So all these factors are epigenetic factors. I'll just give you an example. Now, we have seen that lots of people who are carrying a gene variant, which is something like, we call it as impaired fat metabolism. So those people who are carrying that particular gene have got an impaired fat metabolism. If you are going to put that person into a keto diet, chances are that you may get negative results.
Okay, understood.
So you need to know this first, and you need to understand what could actually eventually cause that negative factor. And now maybe that if that person gets into a weight loss program, maybe a high protein diet may be ideal for him rather than a high fat diet.
Can doing an epigenetic test really tell us how we can slow our aging?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes. Because we will be able to know what are the kinds of factors which are actually causing aging. When you look at aging, generally people think that aging is common and it's normal. But now the new science which says that aging has to be treated like a disease, So it can be because of various factors, like it could be because of the telomere, shortening process, which is actually becoming faster, could be because of mitochondrial dysfunctions. So there are so many factors. So when you are going through an epigenetic test, what is happening is that you are going to identify certain gene variants which are actually leading to, your aging, which we call it as longevity or how long you can live healthy, I'll tell you there are certain genes called sirtuins, SID genes. These genes are called SID genes, SIRT. They are responsible for your longevity. And there are people who have got impaired, SID genes getting impaired. So in those cases, definitely you will know that, there will be a problem with that person's longevity. And you will also be able to understand through our program, that what could be the trigger which can actually make this happen. So longevity, aging, all this kinds of process, definitely from an epigenetic test you will get some level of indications, and also some cases we get absolute indications.
Perfect. So doctor, once we do an epigenetic test, what sort of or what kind of recommendation can we get?
You're getting recommendation on all the lifestyle factors, which even includes how many cups of coffee is safe for you.
That's amazing,
Yeah, because some people think that coffee is bad, some people think that coffee is good. Some people are confused whether I should be using sugar or not. Some people are confused whether I should be putting milk in the coffee. So these are minute things, but still you get some idea about all these kinds of factors also. I'm not saying that this is the only thing which you get, but even from this level up to what kind of vegetables you should be using, what kind of vegetables can actually create problem for you. Because we all believe that broccoli is a very safe, very healthy vegetable, but we have seen in the reports of many people that broccoli or any of this kind of cruciferous vegetables activate certain gene variants. You should know that whether you can eat it or not. And also exercise wise, nowadays everybody goes to the gym, or at least people most of the time they want to go to the gym, and some people end up going to the gym. And when you go to the gym, what happens is that you have a personal trainer, and the trainer actually gives you most of the time high cardio exercise or high intensity interval training, HIITs. But unfortunately what we have seen in our reports is that many of the people, if you look at it, they carry something called a prolonged QT interval. That's a genetic profile. It's not a disease. You have that QT, that in the graph. So the prolonged QT is one particular gene variant. Those people, if they engage into high intensity interval trainings, chances of heart failure is very high. Mm-hmm. So I think on all these factors we can give recommendation, whether you can run marathon or not. Suppose you may not be carrying that particular gene, or you are carrying a gene which is working against you if you run marathon. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to stop running marathon, but you may have to take certain precautions before running a marathon. So you can create an operating manual for yourself in terms of your food, in terms of your fitness, in terms of the medicine. What kind of medicine work for you, what kind of medicine work against you, even the lifestyles like coffee or alcohol or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. All those factors you're getting very, very precise, highly personalized, I call it as a hyper-personalized recommendations.
Once we do an epigenetic test, sir, can it help us to prevent certain chronic diseases or give some clue about it?
Absolutely. I'll give you my example. My father died from heart attack. My grandpa also died from heart attack. So I knew that I'm carrying that gene. So that's why I always tell people that just by having a genetic test and getting a report and knowing about all the health risk factors is not enough. What we do in our program is that we are actually doing a lot of correlations to find out what is causing that gene to switch on. Okay. Because when I'm carrying a gene variant which can express as coronary artery disease, mm-hmm. that gene I'm carrying right from my birth. Okay? Even now I'm carrying it. By God's grace, till now nothing has happened. Now, my only question in my mind was that what can make that gene on? It is off now. What can make it on? What can make it expressed? Now, in my case, I could find that, or rather our experts could find that I also carry another gene variant which actually elevate my homocysteine level. And as a doctor, you know that when you have an elevated homocysteine, you have a higher chance of getting heart attack. So I have that gene. Now, the next question is that what is making that gene express? Now, in my case, there is a mutation in the MTHFR gene, which actually caused by deficiency of vitamin B9. So genetically, I have got lower capacity to absorb B9. That's a folic acid. So folates. No. Now the hack is, I understand that I have a higher risk for the coronary artery disease. I also carry a gene variant which can lead to higher homocysteine. And now I understand that it will happen only when my B9 drops drastically. So every 3 to 4 months, I'll just do a blood test to understand my homocysteine level. Whenever it is crossing some 10, 12, I'll just go and take methylfolate supplementation for maybe about 2 weeks, and then I check it is dropped. Now this is a kind of hack. So what I'm talking about is that if you ask me, by doing this program, can people prevent this kind of deadly disease? I would say yes. Only thing is that it's not just by getting a report and knowing that this disease is there or this kind of a gene variant is there with you, but understanding the trigger and then following that lifestyle modification which is recommended by your doctors or the experts, then you can actually prevent most of the diseases to a greater extent.
What is the most surprising thing which you have uncovered by doing an epigenetic test for any patient?
There's a gentleman who is a multi-billionaire. He's a diamond merchant, and he underwent this program. And while the genetic counseling was going on, that point of time, our counselors told him very clearly that, sir, the problem is that you cannot run marathons. It's okay, you can do any other exercise. Marathons are not for you. He started laughing. He said that your report is wrong. Your recommendation is all wrong because I've been running marathons for the last 2 years, 3 years. Nothing happened. I run full marathons. He's a fitness freak. So the genetic counselor said, no. But as per your genetic profile, you're not supposed to run marathons. But he didn't believe in it. This happened in 2022. 2023, he collapsed during Delhi Marathon. And then he was taken to the hospital and he was in the ICU that point of time. The cardiologist who is educated in the US, he came and he asked, you kind of a rich person, you should have done the proper test before getting into things like marathon. He said, what test? Your genetic profile can tell you. He said, yeah, I had done it, but then he immediately asked for a recounseling. And after the recounseling, he was so thoroughly convinced. He's one of our greatest ambassadors right now. So then he said, I accept that your report is correct, but how can I run marathon? So, but interesting fact is that once you understand the trigger, what can trigger that particular gene, and then you can make those modifications, not on the gene, but on the environment. So now also he's running marathons, but after taking I think a magnesium IV or a few other supplements on a regular basis, he's almost like good. I won't say quite exciting, but still it was very convincing, from the overall program.
You become more confident.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can your lifestyle really change your gene?
The lifestyle cannot change a gene because gene is gene. It cannot be changed. Like what I said earlier, the expression of a gene is depending on your lifestyle. Lifestyle means, the food you eat, the kind of place you live in and all that. So I don't know whether you heard about this, that changing the zip code has been found as one of the reasons for death. That means people move from one country to another, and that is also being found as a reason for death. Why? Because they are getting into a new environment, new food culture, maybe new oil, whatever it is, and that could be triggering some of the gene variants. Lifestyle cannot change the gene, but lifestyle can definitely trigger certain genes. So it's very important.
Doctor, what do you think that is epigenetic testing is a personalized wellness in the future?
Ultimately, yes. Because there are many other ways by which you can actually personalize, but epigenetic lifestyle modification programs or epigenetic testing followed by the kind of programs what is being designed is going to be the hyper personalization, mainly because you come to know about your own genes and you come to know about what kind of food work for you, what kind of food work against you, all minute test details like what I said, how many cups of coffee is safe for you, which kind of environment suits you, all those kinds of factors. So this is the ultimate solution for personalization.
Doctor, how accurate is this test? Because a lot of patients are curious to know about it.
See, this Human Genome Project, which was opened in 2003, so that's a pool of data. Based on that, the entire genetic testing is being done globally. So, of course, it has gained a lot of accuracy over a period of time, but still, what we have seen is that when anyone who goes to this kind of program, and we have seen ultimate levels of satisfaction in terms of what they come to know about themselves. So that shows that, people are getting the right kind of results. But from a scientific point of view, yes, of course, even WHO talks about it as, it is helping people to take an informed choice. So all in all, if you look at it, the S&Ps which is being actually, being read or being analyzed, which is from a global pool. So there is absolute accuracy there.
Can stress and mindset actually alter gene expression?
Absolutely. Because we have even seen that, there are specific genes which are actually responsible for managing your stress. We have seen there are certain genes, gene variants primarily, which reduces your resilience to stress. Stress is any which way common in life. Nowadays you cannot live without stress. But how much you can cope up with the stress, there is a genetic factor. So some people carry that particular gene variant, which actually increases or which is actually reducing the resilience to stress, and they cannot manage stress well, which leads to anxiety and ultimately which leads to most of the metabolic disorders. Lifestyle, that stress is one of the major causes. So some people are able to handle stress very well. They don't get any kind of disease even after handling so much of stress because they don't have that problem. So stress and of course those kind of factors has got an impact on gene expressions. There was a businessman who came to me and he was saying that I've lost all interest in my life. Why should I leave? Why should I build the business? I have no interest. Some or other he's losing interest every single day, thinking of committing suicide kind of thing, and kind of, you can say, clinically depressed in a way. And I think 1 or 2 doctors told him that you are going through depression, you need to take some medicine. He was not willing. He just wanted to know what is exactly going on. And he had gone through the Epigenetics program earlier. So I asked him for the report. And we looked at the report and I went straight to the behavioral part. You can actually measure most of the behavior things. We found that he has got a gene variant which is actually reducing the resilience to stress. He cannot handle stress. And which leads to, he also carries another gene variant which increases the anxiety. Now I asked him what happened during the last 1 year. So did you get into something which you have never done in your life? Because it is written in the recommendation that unknown terrains and uncertain situations. This is what is being told. This can actually lead this gene to express. He did exactly the same thing. He went to another country and started a business. And the country was new to him. Business was new to him. Now the gene got expressed. Now our experts actually sat down and started figuring out what could have made that gene to express. Of course, this situation. But along with that, there was another issue with him. That is, he was having lower concentrations of magnesium, genetically. So he was recommended to take magnesium supplementation on a regular basis. You won't believe, in 2 weeks' time, he came back to normal. The fellow who has been clinically diagnosed as depressed, because the root cause was identified. That is the good thing about epigenetics.
Can epigenetics really tell us what supplements to take and what not to take?
Absolutely. Since 2000, I used to take nutrition supplements without my knowledge, without knowing that there is something called personalization. I thought supplements, it's supplement safe, you can take anything, anytime. But once I went through the epigenetic program, that's the time I realized, and when I changed my supplementation, my stack, that is the time onwards I started enjoying better health. I'll just give you one example. Like B vitamin is very common. Most of the people just pop in B vitamins. See, if someone has got a mutation on the MTHFR gene, which is the longest gene in your body, which is the root cause, or which is the gene which calls for all the metabolic disorders, some of the B vitamins can create trouble for you if you haven't checked it out well. So is the case with many other vitamins like zinc. Many people pop in zinc now. In some cases we have seen that this can actually give negative results. So supplements or nutraceuticals are not something like you can eat anything anytime. it's always better to check your genetic profile before get into any supplementation program.
So a genetic testing along with the blood test will let us know which is the perfect supplements to be taken.
Absolutely, that's the right way. But blood tests always, keep varying. The markers will keep varying. Genetic, you will know that exactly where you stand in terms of deficiency or excess, higher absorptions.
Are we really what we eat? What does epigenetics tell us about it?
Yeah, we are definitely what we eat, and we are definitely what we don't eat also, because we should know what we should avoid. This is also very important. We don't know what I should not be eating. For some people, the sulforaphane-rich foods like the cruciferous vegetables are not good. So you may have to avoid that once you see that genetic profile. Lactose intolerance is very common now, and people think that lactose intolerance is reflected as skin allergy or nausea, headache when you take any dairy products. But when we see our genetic testing process, we are seeing that many people who have no external indications of any lactose intolerance are lactose intolerant.
Okay.
And if it is not externally exhibited, then where is it happening? Most of them have got leaky gut, which they don't even know. And you must be knowing that most of the autoimmune diseases are the result of leaky gut. So it is definitely what we eat and what we don't eat, and based on our genetic and metabolic profile.
Doctor, sudden cardiac deaths are very common now. How can we prevent it? What do you think about epigenetic test can help about it?
There are many reasons we have seen from a genetic and also metabolic profiling. We have seen many reasons for it, but at the same time, I think, of course, it's a combination of genetics and epigenetics. Now, even you have seen people who are kind of so-called healthy, fit, getting onto the gym in their 40s and dying. Even celebrities are dying on the gym floor. They will be doing some exercise which is not apt for them. Like, the QT is one particular factor which they need to check on the genetic profile. If you have a prolonged QT, you should not get into high-intensity interval trainings, which can actually damage you without the knowledge they are doing it. Now, if your homocysteine level is shooting up, which is again another genetic factor, which can be because of certain mutations in certain genes, you have a higher chance of getting a sudden cardiac death. So there are many factors which we have seen which are connected to certain gene variants. So once we understand that and take necessary steps to block the triggers, it is okay even if you carry that gene variant. The only problem is when it expresses. So if you can block it, I think you are actually protecting yourself from that kind of a problem.